Rotate
Well,
it.
she's going to cut.
No, I know, do her thing.
Yeah, we'll be talking.
Not a bad chunk of deer.
So, this guy died in August.
Yeah.
There's no under fur at all in there.
Oh, yeah, actually there is.
Well, a little bit, but I mean, it's pretty damn clean. Wow.
Yep. Well, I've been able to high grade the.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a couple miles of impressive deer hair.
All right.
Well,
You guys ready to get started?
yeah.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Taiwan on Tuesday. Tonight we have Jay Buckner. He's doing an interesting little show on some international flies, I think mostly from England. Am I right?
Yes.
Awesome.
It will be from England tonight.
Yeah, so should be interesting. Thanks again for tuning in. We've got the rest of the calendar up for March. And of course, I didn't write it down, but next week we got Howard and the guys back. The week after that, we have John is hosting again. And then the week after that, Scott's going to finish up the series for the last Tuesday in March. So thanks for following along and stay tuned for the rest of the month. And as always, shout out to Wyoming Whiskey and Rep Your Water, making sure these guys don't go thirsty tonight. So let's have some fun. Thanks, Jay.
You bet. Well, this is a neat little fly that we just don't see here very often. It was devised by a gentleman in Orkney, which is an island off the west coast of Scotland. A lot of what the British or the Scots do with their big flies like this is they use it for lake fishing, and they call it their bob fly. So they fish three flies at a time, commonly 4 to 6 feet apart, which makes a very long leader. 20-foot leaders are not at all uncommon for their lake fishing. So they have a point fly and a middle fly, and they get very specific about what ones go in the middle and what ones go on the point.
Mm-hmm.
But the bob flies, the idea of those is as they float and they wake and they pull them along the surface and make them an enticing item for trout. And a lot of times the wild ground trout get pretty aggressive with taking these moving and sliding, and which are imitating something alive on the surface.
Now, do they have the big walking caddis over there like we have here?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Because,
know.
I mean, this would be a great imitation for that.
But that's exactly where my interest in this type of a fly came from. We see other flies that are tied in this style that you could be expanded to be a salmon fly or any
Sure.
variety of stone flies.
There is actually a salmon fly.
Right, that's tied very similar to this.
Yeah.
But the original one came from Scottish Isles. Okay, nothing mysterious. I'm going to start my thread. I'm going to do an olive-bodied one. And
So just a standard dry fly hook?
standard dry fly hook. This one is fairly large standard dry fly hook. This is an 8.
Mm-hmm.
And which is actually, for our walking caddis, is a perfect size for the darn thing. It's
And for you folks that are not familiar with that, that particular caddis is pretty prevalent throughout the western United States. I don't know about eastern.
I don't know about eastern either.
Yeah, but
Very little
from
experience
California,
there.
I first started fishing them on Manzanita Lake in Northern California. And they come off relatively late. You might have about an hour of fishing, but they'll actually get on the surface. And why they're called walking caddis is because they just skittering across the surface to get to the shoreline. And you'll have these explosive takes.
Oh my goodness.
And you and I messed around with them down in the Pinedale area,
Oh yes.
and not just on lakes, river
Right.
situations there.
Yep. And I can't tell you what caddis fly the walking caddis is. I don't know. We have one that's, because a lot of times we don't have the same caddis in the rivers as in the lakes.
You mean technically? You mean
technically like the
Latin.
scientific name of them, of the walking caddis that we see.
Dicomicus.
But we have a river caddis that's equally large. It doesn't have a common name that I know of.
Yeah.
Its scientific name, and it's a fairly large family, is Dicomicus. And Dicomicus has a stone case that they make, which is approximately an inch to an inch and a half long. So the larva in there is really big, and it's not as big a diameter as my little finger, but it's quite large. It's bigger than the pencil.
Yeah.
And that's a river caddis. And we find them in the smallest of streams to all our big rivers. I don't find very many in the Snake because it's just too turbulent. And every rock in the Snake River during the spring runoff turns over at least once, and some of them for a mile and a half.
Yeah. On the upper Snake, we're talking, when we're going from a release of about 480, is it pretty average in the wintertime, to at the Wilson Bridge, 19,000.
Right, I was going to say 20,000.
Isn't unusual. So.
But anyway, this big Dicomicus caddis, it's related to the caddis on the west coast they call the October caddis, which is quite orange, occurs in October, provides some absolutely spectacular fishing on the rivers in Oregon and Washington, Northern California as
Montana,
well.
Western Montana.
Yep. And this is the same genus, Dicomicus, but doesn't hatch in the fall, and it isn't orange. So it's a different guy, but it's a similar size. So we have an inch and a half long caddisfly, and everybody goes, if I'm doing stream sampling for a class, we'll find these large stone cases, and even people who fish here regularly, but I never see that caddisfly. I never see anything, a caddis that big. Where in the world? And it was a puzzle for me for quite a while. But over the years, I've taught classes with the Teton Science School, and a fellow that helped me with the class was an entomologist from Logan, Utah. Well, one year he brought and we'd go out, it was a 4-day class, we'd go out and do an camp over on a stream somewhere in this part of Wyoming, all over the place, and sometimes do a project for the Game and Fish if they had something collecting trout, counting this or doing that. Anyway, he brought along a black light and a sheet. So we had a science school van parked 100 yards from the stream where we were camped, and after dinner we put up a sheet and a black light. Went over and had a cocktail by the fire and exchanged some more stories that we had that occurred during the day, and went back and looked at what we had on the sheet. Now during the day we'd tried to sample the bushes, and we'd gotten 2 different kinds of caddis out of the bushes along the stream. The black light, after an hour, produced 12 different species of caddis.
Yeah.
Not 2, but 10 more than we'd been able to find along the stream. And in further research, we find out that almost all of them hatch at night. We never see them. The trout see them, but we don't. Mm-hmm. And they hatch at night. They hide in the bushes or way up in the trees or someplace, go back and mate and go back and lay their eggs at night and die. And their whole life cycle that we don't see while we're taking a nap goes on, and the trout see it. So we have a situation I've run into where, for no particular reason, you could take a great big caddisfly, throw it out on a stream, even a small stream, and you can't keep the fish away from it. They're seeing them, they're eating them, and they're cheerfully coming after them, even in the daylight, because this is a big bite of groceries, an inch and a half long caddis.
Well, let's throw some stuff on a hook here.
Oh, you suppose. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is pretty much a little bit of dubbing. I'm going to use some UV ice dubbing in light olive. And I have this very nice piece of elk or deer hair that you might want to use a stacker for most flies, but this one is so nice and straight. It's a little more than I needed. This is I can't tell you, anybody, how much stuff you need, how much deer hair you need to get in one little clump here. And you do it by practice. You practice one fly and you got way too much, and it's hard to get tight, hard to tie down, or it looks like it's been on a starvation diet. You didn't get enough. So on these flies, the one thing that we use is we use the gap of the hook as an indicator of how long these bunches of deer hair are going to be. So one of the things I'm going to do, now this doesn't have to be exact, but what I'm trying to keep you from doing is having a tail that's this long. We want to use the gap of the hook. This deer hair is so very nice and straight, I don't need to use, but we'll put it on top of the hook like this, grab it with my, change hands. I have it in my right hand now. I'm going to change and hold it with my left hand. And I'm going to use 1, 2 soft wraps, and then I'm going to pull it tight. Now I really see how this end flares and spreads all out. Well, I don't want that to happen on the other end. So I'm going to hang on to it here for a minute. I'm going to put a few more wraps on here so it's nice and tight. There's my deer hair tail. Now this stuff is stuff I'm going to take off. We'll snip that off.
And you're just using 3/0 Danville thread?
Yep, it's just, 3/0 monocord.
Yeah. So 6/0 uni thread would be comparable.
Sure.
140 denier UTC would be comparable.
Jay, you've got a fan. Patty Green Johnson says, "Hi Jay, what a treat to see you tie again."
Well, thank you. That's very, very nice. Neat. Anyway, so I have my little butts of deer hair here. And I don't have to make those too neat because I'm going to take a little bit of this dubbing. And I really don't need very much, but what I want is I want enough to cover up those hair butts that I tied down. And if I had pulled this a little tight and my deer hair wanted to stand up, I can use my dubbing, come on, there you go, to wrap back onto the deer hair just a little tiny bit to pull it down.
So you're just coming back.
So it lays back. I don't want it to look like a shaving brush.
So you're just taking the dubbing, coming back over the top of that deer hair to
just a tiny bit.
Just to control it.
Just a tiny bit so that with a loose wrap, and we'll go forwards to cover up those hair butts, but it also gives me a nice little platform here for the next section of deer hair. So we'll do the same thing again, another little section of deer hair. Same basic treatment and the same idea with the length of it. I want it
And same amount?
approximately the same amount. I actually have a little more, but that's okay. I may have been a little sparse. So we want to work with that small length. So I want to work with something that's going to be in the range of that hook gap. So again, hold it with my left hand, my right hand, change to my left. I'm going to do 2 wraps, and then I'm going to pull it tight. Now, what this does, by doing that, what it does is it keeps me from pushing hair around the side of that hook. And I want all this stuff to kind of sit up on top. Now I've tied it down with a few extra wraps, just like the first one. I'll snip off my excess. Try not to cut my thread. Ah, perfect. There we go.
What size hook are we using?
Size 8.
Yeah.
But it will work for a size 10.
Yeah.
Work for size 12. Doesn't have to be a size 8, but the larger hook in the repertoire will make it easier for everybody to see. So there we are. We've tied down those hair butts again of the deer hair. And we'll put another little bit of olive dubbing on here to cover that up nicely. Now, so we'll do the same thing again with another clump of deer hair. Now, you'll notice how much deer hair is going on this, and one of the things that we end up with is we end up with a fly that floats very well. Gives corks bad names. Okay, same deal. We'll put it right down here in front of that previous little patch. Snug this down nice and tightly. So after we get past by the first little group of steps, now we have a little repetition going here. Yes, Howard, you were going to say something.
Yeah, so when you did your research on this, is there a date when this?
I didn't have a date.
Okay.
Did not. But the gentleman who devised it, or is given credit for it, is a fellow named Sandy Dixon, who's still tying flies, and he doesn't look like he's as old as I am.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm just kind of thinking,
Right.
this is a little bit of a offshoot of a Goddard caddis, or the Goddard caddis was a little bit of an offshoot of this. In both English.
Good question. No reference in what I found on this fly referenced Goddard caddis.
Yeah. But I mean, technique-wise,
Right.
somewhat. I mean, different, but somewhat similar.
I got a little carried away with my dubbing. Take some of that off.
Oh, and the other thing I was thinking is, so for some of you folks, when his reference is the hook gap, and you're maybe kind of new to fly tying, the hook gap would be from the shank, the top of the shank of the hook, to the bend, that distance between the two.
To the point.
Yeah. So from here
From the point to the hook.
To the hook.
So we'll put on our fourth clump, and again, a short one. We don't want any of these to end up being particularly long. And we'll finish this up right here at the front. Yeah, sometime after this fly was originally devised by Sandy Dixon, evidently, it was a little too bulky for a few people, so there was a fellow named Stan Headley that scaled it all down, left the tail off, and tied it on a smaller hook. And instead of a hedgehog, he called it a sedgehog. So it had the deer hair wings similar to this, but it was nowhere near as bulky. And his primary sizes were 12s and down instead of this size.
So when you're saying down, you're like 12, 14.
12, 14, 16. Mm-hmm.
And don't you have an example of one there, don't you?
I do.
I think there's some hemostats right there.
Mm-hmm. It's right here someplace. There we go. Here, we'll show you the two of them together here in a second. It'll make sense. We'll finish this off. And now with the head of this, I'm not going to put any extra dubbing on here. We'll just tighten that up. And even though I was trying to be fairly careful not to send too much deer hair around the hook on the other side, I'm going to have to look. I did on the last one, the last clump there. Okay, so here we have a hedgehog with deer hair tail, wings, and the like. And here is the one that I did this afternoon called a sedgehog. And it doesn't have the tail. It's on a size 12 hook. But common to a lot of caddis, it is a little fluorescent green egg sac at the very back, and it doesn't have as much bulk. So similar style of tying,
Similar techniques. Yep.
but one scaled down to be more of a smaller size river caddis.
Yeah.
This hedgehog is not necessarily a good small river caddis. On the rivers, I fish commonly 12s and 14s for a tractor type caddis. And for Mr. Dicomicus, this guy. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It really does look like a hedgehog.
Now, how would you know that? Have you been to England?
The fly looks like a hedgehog.
Yeah, no.
Nope, sure haven't.
Nice.
John, you wanna hop in there and do a
Yeah,
fishing report?
you gotta, John, you wanna jump in here and give a little fishing report, what's been going on?
Yeah.
All of us have been out a little bit still,
I'll
you,
hop in the
you,
backward
you and
player.
Ken and, no.
Oh, am I sitting down next
Oh
to you?
yeah, plank it right there.
Okay. We'll be brief, Howard, don't worry. Yeah, so just to do a little quick fishing report here. You know, we've been seeing a good trend with our weather lately. It's getting definitely a lot warmer. Our nighttime temperatures are staying warmer, which I think is very, very crucial to a lot more bug activity and fish activity.
Consistent.
Yeah,
Consistency.
like Howard's been saying, this consistency is what's making it a lot better for us. You know, fished the Henry's Fork yesterday. Fished pretty good. Saw some heads poking up too. Nothing too crazy on dry flies, but nymph fishing was producing plenty of fish. Swinging small streamers produced a off fish. Not that it was too crazy, but you know, that's always another option this time of year.
Yeah, and I saw some of the other guys that were in the area
Yeah.
that were swinging.
Yeah,
They were-
exactly. They're
they were-
catching
they were
fish,
getting
so it's
fish.
that's a
Other guys that were nymphing
yeah.
were doing
Yeah,
okay also.
exactly. I know Ken made it out today, and he said dry fly fishing. You had a little short window, but it was still good. Fish are coming up rising, which is always good to see this time of year.
That was right here locally.
Yeah, that was on the lower or the upper snake, excuse me, here in Jackson. So that's always kind of a nice change of pace for
Cool.
what we're seeing this time of year.
Yeah, I was out on Sunday
Mm-hmm.
on the snake, and the window was a little almost too short.
Yeah.
And but we had enough. The weather was warm enough. Sun was warm enough. It was melting so much snow into the river
Yeah.
that when we got to the water, it was 36 degrees,
Yeah.
and that has to be from ice water melting off the shore.
Yeah, I think that's what happened with us yesterday on Henry's Fork.
Yeah.
With the dry fly stuff.
Mhm.
Because when
Oh yeah.
Because it wasn't like it I mean, things weren't going nuts, but it was good enough. And then when things closed down, it didn't gradually go down. It just like it was done
Yep.
Yeah, melt.
with the dries.
Right.
Oh.
Well, we had,
Yeah.
well, we didn't, I saw 2 fish rise, but on Sunday, we had about a 30-minute window where on nymph fishing, I mean, nothing, when I snag a whitefish, it's, they aren't doing much. But, so that was my first fish, was a snagged one. But and after this 30-minute little spurt, I took water temperature again. It was 38. Was all, and then it went back down.
Yeah.
So, and it 30 minutes of boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
poof, nothing again.
Well, as I've always said, in this early season, I mean, a half a degree water temp
Yeah, it makes all
can,
the difference.
can turn it on, can turn it off. And
Yes.
that's why, again, when these nights
Yeah,
were on, I mean, like last night was relatively balmy
yeah,
for us.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're teasing us right now. we know we're going to get some other weather,
Yeah,
but right now, I mean, it's pretty spring on conditions.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, almost too good because of all the ice melt
Yeah.
or snow melt.
But I think, Jay, there when nighttime temperatures don't fluctuate so extreme, yes, you have cold water coming in, but it's much more consistent. It's not like
Right.
coming
You're
in
not getting big
whatever,
spikes.
because
Yeah.
you at the end of the day yesterday,
Yeah,
what happened?
yeah. I mean, Howard saw maybe what 3, 4 fish kind of rising somewhat consistently.
Yeah.
You know, it was around 5 o'clock.
Well, just where I was. I'm
Yeah.
sure if I had
Yeah,
migrated.
but you know, everybody else is getting off the river. I go down to fish for maybe another 15, 20 minutes, and all of a sudden I look around and fish are just coming up, rising everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, nothing we'd seen up until that point was remotely close to what I was seeing at that time. So it was
And
Definitely.
my thought there is because again it was getting to the end of the day, so
Yeah.
air temperature was cooling off, so now cold water wasn't coming
Yeah,
in
the
as
melt's
much,
kinda
so
slowing
actually
down.
water temperatures were actually rising
Yeah.
probably, which initiated
Yeah.
fish. I mean, most of the time, winter stuff that's kind of unusual,
yeah.
you know.
Well, yeah, to
But
see it
Ken,
stuff
you
happening
said-
at 5.
Ken, you said you've seen that happen though before.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway, that's our up-to-date fishing
so
report.
yeah,
And,
from here on in, it's just going to get better and better.
yeah.
Until it really starts to puke.
Well, I really hate to see it these warm nights this early in the year.
Yeah, and that's
'Cause
good for a snowpack.
In the long time I've been here, I have seen the river turn muddy and not get better on the 5th of April one year. And it went bad, and that
Yeah.
was the end of it. So if we count from now till, for the next couple weeks, if
Yeah.
we keep up with these warm nights, we could have a little stuff that we don't need,
Yeah. No.
like
Absolutely.
muddy water.
Well, not only that, it's depleting snowpack. I mean, we want
Yeah, sooner than later.
yeah,
or
we want that to
earlier
hold
than
on
we
as long as we can.
You want to ski
Yeah.
for
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you spring skiers.
need. Very hard.
Casper Beach, baby.
So Jay, what is on the agenda here now?
Okay, well, we've talked about big caddis and big caddis. So I've got another fly that actually, and I didn't know it, that this fellow Sandy Dixon was involved with the hedgehog until a couple days ago. I was looking to find out a little research for the evening, and found out he has a whole nother series of flies, and he's still actively tying flies and very active in the I shouldn't say British if he's from Orkney, but we should say
Yeah,
Scottish. But
you'd know more about that.
anyway, he's still very active, and I've seen a bunch of his stuff come up lately, and some of it has been competition type things, or not necessarily aimed at competition, but he has a series of flies he calls a blank buster. One of the things in all the Brits, they do not like to get blanks. So he has a whole series of flies. So you have your session of fishing, whatever it is, in a boat or on the bank, and you don't catch any fish. You have just blanked.
Yeah.
So he has a whole series of flies called blank busters, and they're all midge-oriented, aimed at being midge imitations, or buzzers,
Mm-hmm.
as they call them And one of the interesting things, we don't call them buzzers here, we call them midges, but anybody who's ever been around any of the even small to medium-sized lakes with a huge hatch of midges, midges concentrate or collect around bushes and vegetation, and sometimes you'll find a bunch of midges as they're doing mating flights and collecting thousands upon thousands upon thousands of midges collected in one bunch. And if you walk near that bush, they buzz. Buzz, you can hear them.
Mm-hmm.
And even with my bad hearing, I can hear them. So, which is why they call them buzzers.
Well, my bad hearing actually came about, I think, 25, 27 years of marriage. I think right about there is where my bad hearing really started kicking in.
You better hope Wendy's not watching.
I don't want to touch that with someone else's 10-foot pole. Thank you.
Well, before you get started on your second fly, we got a question just about kind of local, what flies were working best for everyone that was fishing the last few days here in Jackson.
Ones I was having success with were size 14 nymphs. I was, in fact, one called a nice little pheasant tail variation called a Frenchie, a little bead
Yeah.
with a red collar. That was in my half-hour window the other day. that was the successful fly.
Is that on a jig hook?
No, it could be, but it
Yeah.
wasn't.
I think we carried them.
Yeah,
I think
we
it
saw
was
a couple in one.
Yeah, I think it was on a jig hook.
It's pretty easy to switch to it.
Yeah.
Put it on a jig hook.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Obvious. My dry fly stuff. I mean, there was actually two midges coming off. One was quite large, actually, pretty close. Size 18, really, or a big 18, small 20, and then there was like a 24, whatever. And that's kind of, again, pretty black. I always say, for our area here, black, gray, and don't ever forget red. Red is, even though you might not see it, I don't know, there's something about red works, especially for, underneath or right in the surface film.
And then mine was zebra midges, like size 16 in black.
What are you talking about? You had a hunk of stuff on there.
Well,
It was a bunch of
yeah.
stuff. Had legs going all over the
I
place.
got one on a patch rubber leg and then a bunch of zebra midges.
He needed an anchor fly.
All right.
Needed that anchor. That's
Ken, you today?
I fished my little Mage Beta Submerger, size 20, and then when they started refusing that, I actually went up to size 18 Adams, and that worked. That was very effective.
Which you will find. I almost was tempted to do that yesterday on the Henry's Fork, but I have found that here
Yeah.
for sure. Where I've talked about before, where I truly believe our system here, winter fishing, most of the time snake, where individual flies as opposed to where I've talked about, like Griffith's gnats or cluster midge type things, work far better here, even though they're larger. They're larger than the actual fly out there. And, yeah,
You mean the singles,
yeah,
like a Parachute Adams.
size 18.
Parachute Adams is
Size 18
just a killer.
Parachute Adams.
Parachute Adams 18.
I mean, it takes a lot of fun out of life, though.
Yeah.
But no, but that's reality. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, as far as the insects we saw on Sunday, at least 3 different sizes of midges, something that was way into the 20s, and something that would have been a 20-ish, and then actually a few quite large midges, not very many of them. They were
Well,
a 16, 17. I mean, they were really big, and one of the small black stoneflies, spring stoneflies.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Mike, who's been in on our situations here before, whatever, he's been out a fair amount right here locally and have seen quite a few of our little black stones captive. And again, they are pretty much
It's about time.
Yeah, it's pretty much size 18.
Yeah.
Size 18.
18.
Might even be a big 18, small 16.
Oh, we actually have two different species of that little
Okay.
winter stonefly. One is an 18 to 20,
Yeah.
and one's a big 18,
Yeah. 17.
a 17
Yeah.
for sure. Small 16.
Yep.
Okay, so this gentleman that I was talking about, Sandy Dixon, has a whole series of flies from underwater buzzer patterns, which would be the midge larva, and one of his blank busters is a flashback buzzer, so it's tied like a larva with a bit of flash across the back of it. He's got quite a series of them, but the one that caught my eye a couple of years ago was one that was called an assassin. Okay, and it was just intrigued me, so I tied a few of them and threw them in my fly box in 12s and 14s. The thing about the British lake fishing, where they use a lot of these buzzers, is that their midges get just absolutely huge. They fish size 8s in buzzer pattern some. I mean, that's astonishing. But on the lakes, they commonly are fishing 10s and 12s. Maybe 12s being a preferential, sometimes 14s. And people that get into, and occasionally they'll have to go to a smaller one. But 12s are, so I tied some of these in the sizes that they suggested. This is a size 12 hook. This is a Tiemco 206 barbless. I really like this little hook. It's a reasonably light wire.
I love that hook.
I really do.
Yeah.
I like tying
And
awful.
there's Daiichi makes one. God, I can't remember the number of it.
Everybody's making one now. I see a grip
but
hook.
again, this is a lighter wire.
Yeah.
So again, if you're trying to sit in that surface film or using it kind of more of a dry type situation, I like that better than the Daiichi and the other ones that are out there in that style.
Okay, I'm going to use some black thread. It's a black hook anyway, but we're going to use some black thread. I'm just going to attach the thread. But this particular, and I'm going to wrap the thread back and a little bit around the bend of the hook. But one thing I'm interested in doing, this is some Danville 6/0.
Okay.
So it's,
Uni thread 8/0, 8/0.
oops, wrong way. But anyway, one thing I really want to focus on doing is, even with this diameter of thread, is trying to keep the twist out of it a little bit.
So what you're doing there is you're unwinding.
I'm just taking the
You're
twist
making
out of it.
You're making it flat.
Right. Or attempting to make it flatter than
Yeah.
it would like to be. Alrighty, so I've made one and attempted to be, so I'm not building up any bulk. If the rounder this thread is, the bigger the
All right. I was
more
just going to ask
bulk
why you want it flat.
yeah, that's why I want it flat.
I mean, you
'Cause
hear me all the time when
I know.
I'm tying that flat.
midges are thin, skinny. I
Yeah.
don't want to build up any bulk on them. Okay, so I have a little bit of gold wire. Okay, I'm going to wrap it the same way I'm wrapping this,
Away from yourself.
away from myself.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start it on the side away from me,
And why are you doing that?
so that let me get this started. So the first wrap that I take goes underneath the hook and starts to make some purchase into the thread body. It's way less likely to come loose and have all those wraps
Something come off the back.
slide off the back.
Yep.
Whether it's this fly, if I was going to wrap it counterclockwise, back towards me, I'd start the wire on the side towards me, so the first wrap is underneath the hook and into the body material, whether it's thread or whatever,
Yep.
pheasant tail, dubbing. But again, I want to, so I don't have any lumps or bumps in this. I'm going to go way up here to the front and start this wire. We're going to wrap it back. And I'm going to, my thread's quite flat, and I'm going to go all the way around the bend of the hook, just a little bit. Come on, there we go. There we go. Now I've got to unwrap it just a little bit. And we'll go back forwards.
I know, Scott, you're out there looking. I know you're going like, I'd have had this fly done.
And it would have more foam on it than I'm putting on it. But I'm going to put some foam on it.
And a little bit of glue.
And a little glue.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to start underneath here and we're going to wrap this wire. Okay, I'm just going to space it out. Oops, there, let go of it. Make some fairly even spacing.
How many?
It'll end up to be 5.
No way.
Well, actually, it's going to end up to be 6. Howard.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if that's going to be English.
I know.
They might be offended.
But it's going to be very symmetrical.
Yeah.
I'm into symmetrical.
Good looking.
Anyway, so we get up here to the front, and yeah, that came out very nice. We'll tie off the wire and snip it off. Nicely done. Excuse me, I just cut my thread. But I have saved it. Okay, now this little fly actually gets some foam on it. And I cut a strip off some packing foam. This is, what's that? How wide's that?
Oh, quarter?
Quarter inch maybe?
Yeah, quarter
Okay.
by a 16th.
Yep, it's a reasonably,
Thin.
it's not paper, it's not one of those
It's
paper
not
thin,
super thin, but
but it's
pretty standard packing foam.
yep. Now, the original pattern called for 2mm white foam.
Yikes.
And the first one I did, I tried 2mm white foam, and I went, no,
No,
It's
that's
just-
that's Chernobyl stuff.
way too much, too thick, too bulky, too everything. So, first thing I do is I'm going to put a point on my little piece of foam, and I'm going to tie it so that it sticks out over the eye of the hook. So we're going to take that. I'm going to wrap it all the way back to the eye. And so this is going to get a nice little blast of foam on here, which will help it float and help it be visible. Now, would you like me to use the straggle string, or do you want me to do a...
Me? I'm
Well,
not tying.
no, just
You're-
as
you're
an
tying.
idea. I can...
You're tying.
No, but you guys don't have any of this, and I don't want to promote something you don't necessarily have.
Do whatever you want, and then say like,
Okay.
you know, this is another version, and this is what's available. You know, whatever.
Well, I can do this as a split thread dubbing, or that. What do you think?
Without a doubt, let's drive Scott nuts. Split that thread.
Okay, so the original pattern on this is calling for some straggle string, a British company that it's a tiny little chenille.
Yep. And a very good friend of ours, Gary Barnes, is the distributor, American distributor. Good stuff.
Yep. So I'm going to use some ice dub in peacock or peacock black, and get my dubbing splitter here, or my thread splitter. So as an alternate, you can buy this stuff, which I think Howard is, they're talking about stocking some of it here.
Yeah.
Comes in a variety of different colors, steelhead colors, all kinds of neat stuff. But anyway, as an alternative, one way we can deal with that, we'll take a little of this ice dub, and I'm going to make a little rope out of it. We'll pull a little bit of dub off here. which is all I need. And this is going to be my thorax on my little fly. No. We'll make sure this thread is flattened out, which I've been trying to do. And if it's nice and flat, I can take this little needle and split it. Whoops. Put it too close to one side. There we go. And then we'll take this little bit of dubbing that I've kind of pulled long, and we'll stick it in that split
Okay, you
thread.
good there? You good there? The one thing that's really nice, if you are using Danville 6/0 thread, it lies very flat, and you can split it quite easily. Now, there are some folks in the fly tying world that says, uni-thread is 8/0 comparable. That say, you can't split that. Well, you can.
Yes, I can.
Yes, you can. But there is like a sizing in that uni thread.
It doesn't split as easily.
That doesn't split,
But it splits.
as Benici or UTC either. But it will split if you.
Okay, do we need any more explanation on splitting thread and putting my little noodle of
I don't think so.
dubbing in here? So I'll collapse my split thread, and now we're going to twist it up. So here I go, all this time, flat, 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 flat. Now I'm going to twist the son of a gun up,
Into a cord.
and I'm going to twist it quite nicely.
All
Give
right,
it.
we got a comment from Wayne Llewellyn. He said, "Glad to almost get to see your face again, Jay. Thanks for sharing British patterns and techniques."
Thanks, Wayne.
Yeah. And if you want to talk about anybody that is technical in the fly tying world, there's the man.
Wayne is
Yeah.
that. Okay, so now we're going to wrap this, and I actually got a little more of this than I needed, so I'm going to take a little bit off. Oh, fog up my glasses. Yeah, well, I was talking about writing an article on split thread flies a while back, and Wayne sent me a nice piece on that had been done previously on split thread.
He's the one that showed me.
Yeah, right. And
He's the man.
so now we'll take our foam we tied in. We've got our little thorax all bulked up here, and now we're going to pull our foam back, do a nice few wraps back here. I've got this little, there's where I put those. We're going to snip that off short so it's a little, but I've got our little foam bit here. Whip finish on that tie down spot.
Okay, I noticed you did 2 whip finishes.
Right, 2 small whip finishes,
Yeah.
3 each.
Yep.
Okay. I have found over time that a one whip finish, 4 or 5 or 6, will sometimes, not often, but sometimes untie itself. If I do 2, 3 wraps, they don't ever untie themselves.
Head cement?
Nope. No. Okay, so we'll snip this off. Now, to finish my story about tying a couple of, because I remember, just occurred to me I didn't really finish that. Tying this little fly as an experiment in
I was
sizes,
going to bring you back.
yeah, in sizes 12s and 14s. I'm out on the river one day, and there we have some rising fish, and we'd caught some fish, a couple trout, couple
And you're talking
whitefish on dry flies.
And you're talking winter.
Yeah, wintertime.
Wintertime midge.
Yeah, wintertime midge stuff.
And what
And-
midge?
And I'd
big
been
midge would
using,
be- big midge would be an 18,
yeah,
but big.
yeah.
So-
Those are the husky ones.
Yeah, let's
And
talk.
the rest were 20s and
22s.
22s.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so here I've got this fly, and so I've caught a few fish, caught a couple trout, couple whitefish on dry flies, and cool. I've tied this fly that's supposed to be a midge, a buzzer, surface in dry fly type imitation. So I want to try it. I want to at least just see how it floats, and because I hadn't ever put one on the water. So I put on a 14, cast it out. First cast, whitefish ate it. Now I found over the years that whitefish are more selective to things like this than trout are, and they're much more discerning to size and color than the darn trout are. Well, as an example, you kind of went, really? As an example, when I used to fish years and years ago down on a part of the Green River below Fontenelle, before anybody else even knew it was there, we were by ourselves. Okay, you'd find a pack of 100 whitefish feeding on midges, and there'd be 2 trout. You could pick them out. Okay, if you put a midge, or even a little yellow Sally, sometimes it was little yellow Sallies. If you put one of those down there, you'd catch whitefish and whitefish and whitefish until you eventually scared the trout. If you put a size 18 Royal Wolf on, you'd catch the trout, but the whitefish wouldn't touch it. But the trout would take it every time. So I could pick out 2 trout, catch them both, leave the whitefish alone, or they'd leave me alone, because I was fishing a Royal Wolf. They didn't want anything to do with a Royal Wolf. Same with this. Anyway, so I throw out a 14, first cast, boom, whitefish takes it. Wow. Next cast, another whitefish took it. Next cast, a trout took it. Holy cow. It's a 14. And it's way, way, way bigger.
Way bigger.
Than, 3 sizes than the majority of the midges that are going by. And I've been fiddling with this now for 2 years, and it's been consistent. When fish are taking midges, I put one of these on, and I may tie a 16, but in a 14 or a 12, and they just eat it. I have no idea why.
Quit it. That's not even fair. That was kind of like you today, going like, I was going to try this deal, but I couldn't get my tippet through. Like, well, stop using 3X.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything more you have here?
No.
Great looking fly. And again, if you want to tie it smaller, what the heck?
Oh, you can tie it smaller. Actually, I have this 206 BL down to size 24s. Or maybe I have size 26s. I guess what we
Let me
could...
take your temperature.
Yeah.
24s?
24s.
It's time to go drink.
Yeah, true. Okay, so one of the things about this fly is it sits like this in the water. It is doing an impression of a midge hatching. Okay, so midge pupas rise vertically in the water column to the surface. And as they start to emerge, which is what this white foam is indicating, okay, the midge crawls out, and eventually the little larva or pupa body that's hanging under the water eventually comes up flat on the surface, but not till the midge is gone. But that's how this guy floats. And so it's under the water, even though it's considerably larger than any of the bugs that the fish are seeing. They've confidently taken him. I haven't had a refusal that I can remember, even from those picky old whitefish.
If they had a dorsal, people would love them.
Oh, absolutely.
They had a big dorsal.
Absolutely.
Well, Jay, thank you very much. Very informative. A little bit different than what we've done in the past, with a little bit more step-by-step stuff. Hope you folks have enjoyed it. Claire, get us out of here.
Yeah, thanks again, Jay, for joining. I've
welcome.
Learned a lot. A lot of it was over my head, but that was awesome. And we'll be back again next week. We got 3 more shows, so feel free to share it to your friends and family. We really, have loved the support, and thank you guys for watching. So
And again, if anybody has questions about anything, whatever,
Yeah.
don't hesitate to contact us.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here.
Leave us a comment, send us a message,
Give us
us
a
a call. Yeah. And if you have any, topic suggestions. What is that?
This is some of the finest deer hair you'll ever see.
Where'd you get that?
Out of my best deer hair in the world stock.
I thought you were going to say backyard.
No, I have a selection that.
But anyway, so again, thanks for tuning in, and let us know if you guys have any ideas or you want to see anything we talk about. We have a schedule lined up, but hey, we can change it. We want to give you guys what you want to see.
Okay, last thing. Jay Buckner is the originator of High Country Flies. Him and Kathy, his wife, started High Country Flies in 74?
73, I think.
73? So, a lot of...
Give a quick history lesson.
A lot of history here, whatever, so...
Come on, tell them the story. How we merged.
We don't have enough time. Not this week.
Yeah, no, we need another bottle.
Spill it over into next week. There you go.
All right.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you next week. And you can watch all of this stuff on Vimeo or on YouTube or directly on Facebook from our past episodes. So if you missed one, it's not too late to watch it.
Awesome.
Yep. Scott's episode tempted me to tie an alligator, but
It's a fun one.
it was great.
But you were going to do the size 12.
Right.
Okay.